Hello, welcome to a backyard garden update. My name's Justin. I live in Springfield, Missouri. If you've seen some of my older videos, you'll see the progression of the garden and the suburban homestead here a little bit, but I haven't done an update in a long time, so I just thought I'd go along with one. As you can see, there's a play set in the back there that I put together for my daughter, who was 17 months old yesterday, Julia. And then this is the chicken refugee camp. Liza is hanging out inside right now because it's the middle of the day and the sun's out and it's pretty hot. Over here are the other chickens in the regular coop. Basically they tried to hurt her and hurt her pretty bad, and I nursed her back to health and tried to reintroduce her and they wouldn't have her. I don't know if my coop just isn't big enough for 6 chickens, or sometimes chickens will just do that. They'll just say, "You're out," and they'll just peck them to death. I don't know, but she was a good egg producer, and she got used to being handled a little bit while I was nursing her back to health. So I couldn't just offer. I already had some time and money invested in her in egg production with her, so I had all this stuff. This is a plastic raised bed garden. There she is, Liza. This white business was a plastic raised bed garden kit that was given to me by my Uncle Neil and Aunt Deborah, and I repurposed it and cut it into different shapes, and Lincoln logged it together into this shape, and then put some chicken wire over the top and built a little roof on a hinge there with some leftover roofing material I had from this one. So yeah, chickens are going good, getting quite a few, you know, free-range organic eggs or whatever. I don't move the coop around anymore. They just did too much damage to the yard last year. It was really bad, and you know, with this here now, it's not really an option. I wood chipped or mulched this whole area, which I'm thinking someday will be like a back to Eden garden. As long as I just keep adding wood chips to it, they'll break down over time and fertilize the soil, and it'll be a good garden over there if she outgrows that or whatever. But and the garden's doing real good over here. This big open patch here, this is all sweet potato plants that were given to me by my neighbor down the way. His church garden plants a whole lot of stuff that they grow and give to charities or whatnot, soup kitchen type things. And he called and said, "Hey, I got some sweet potato." He's an old guy named Jim. "I got some sweet potato plants if you're interested." But I figured he had like maybe 5 or 6 or whatever plants, and I went down there and he gave me like 29. So I planted 20 of them and I gave 9 to my boss. And so hopefully I'll get a bunch of sweet potatoes out of that. And everything else is doing really well. I don't think I'm going to go through and point out everything. It's all kind of the same stuff usually that I've grown in past years. You know, maybe some different types of peppers and things like that, but generally we got beets, green beans, yellow squash, zucchini, tomatoes, collards, kale, Swiss chard, carrots, peppers. Sweet potatoes is a new thing this year. I tried some different varieties of tomatoes. Over there I got a couple more tomatoes and a big cucumber plant that's doing really well. It was actually like 4 or 5 cucumbers in one pot, and I planted them all in that cage, and it's doing really well. I've never really done cucumbers before. I tried it my first year, didn't go so well. I haven't done them since. George Michael is my new outdoor homesteading buddy. He comes out and hangs out and cats around the yard, and he's not too awful interested in the chickens, which is kind of funny. But so the main thing now here is this big old raised bed here. If you watch some of my old videos, you might remember I wood chipped all this area. Well, I didn't do such a good job of getting a good thick layer and bordering it well like I did over there, and then also adding more to it over time, because it starts to break down pretty quickly. After 6 months or a year, it was really broken down, and there's some I'll take you in here, and this is where the idea comes from. It's the whole back to Eden garden method, but it looks really dry right here because it's hot out today, but it rained a lot last night, but it'd been real dry before that for a while. It's June 13th, but looks real dry. And I'll dig down a little bit into where these wood chips were, and it's just like some broken down, dark, moist, good planting soil down there. And so that's the back to Eden method. You just keep piling up wood chips and compost, and over time it all breaks down and you build up a layer of good soil on top of your existing soil, and you never have to actually dig into your existing soil. Well, I'm trying out a sort of hybrid permaculture method here called a Hugelkultur. Hugelkultur! Ja, das Hugelkultur. Es ist sehr gut. So, Hugelkultur is normally where you dig out a trench, remove the topsoil, maybe dig down up to 18 inches if you want, I guess. I was planning on doing maybe like 8. And then you backfill that in with big logs, and then progressively finer organic matter. So like big logs, preferably older ones, not ones that have been freshly cut, preferably ones that have been sitting around for a while, like that big pile of logs back there from when we first moved in. We had a couple trees out front taken down, so I got that big pile of logs that has been breaking, you know, just drying out and rotting out for 3 years or so, almost 4 years probably. And they've got mushrooms and stuff growing on them, which is a good sign that they're decomposing. And that's sort of how the whole Back to Eden and the Hugelkultur works, is fungi decomposing wood matter, and it's mimicking the forest floor, basically, with leaf litter, old rotting trees, that kind of thing. So I'm going to sheet mulch instead of digging down, because I started to dig today and it's pretty warm out, and I started to dig and it was a real pain in the butt. So I was just like, you know what, I had seen people on YouTube do this in just raised beds, and normally when you do this, it's just a big mound that you dig down, fill it in, layer it up, and then it's sort of a mound sticking out of the ground, and you wouldn't have the container or whatever, the bed, the raised bed. Since I'm not digging down because I'm lazy, and because this soil, after I sheet mulch it and kill this grass, the stuff that's in here, and I would still like to do some edging around this with wood chips to keep the grass from invading into it as much as possible. But I'm going to sheet mulch this with cardboard, and all that woody matter that's already breaking down in there is going to inoculate everything with the good fungus that's in that soil right now, in those wood chips that have been breaking it down for like 2 or whatever years. So fill this in with big logs, then fill in all the gaps with smaller sticks and stuff, and I've got a lot of those back there, and I've got some more back here around the side of the shed, the workshop. George Michael! And some old broken down sticks there. And I'm just going to fill it in with a bunch of organic matter in the sticks, and then I've got a bunch of leaves that I've collected over time. My neighbor has a big pile of them back in the back corner of their yard that I'm going to pilfer. Then I've got this trash can here full of homemade compost. I've got homemade worm castings. I've got some local sources for manure from Craigslist and from through a family friend. Someone on Craigslist that has a bunch of sheep and goat manure that's free for the taking. I just have to drive down south about 45 minutes to go get it. I may do that, or if I want to wait till about the end of the month, a family member's who they're married to, their cousin, something along those lines, has a rabbit tree and has just a giant, probably 8 foot around, 3 to 4 foot high mound of rabbit manure, and it's the pine shavings that they keep in their pens or whatever, and the poop, and that's fine. Those pine shavings will all help break down. It's just more woody matter, but the rabbit poo is a great nitrogen fix. It adds a lot of nitrogen to the soil. And with the big logs, one thing that they say about the Hugelkultur is that your first year won't be so good, because those big logs, to break down, are going to rob nitrogen from everything else around them. You can avoid that somewhat, I believe, by using the old rotted logs instead of like freshly cut from live trees. So hopefully it shouldn't be that big a deal. Also, my worm castings are full of nitrogen. I'm not too worried about it, but also another thing I can do is plant beans on here, because beans are a nitrogen fixer. They fix nitrogen into the soil. There's little nodules on their roots that release nitrogen into the soil, I guess. And so you plant those off first, and they're going to fix more nitrogen into the mound as you first build it. So my plan here is fill this in with the big logs. First sheet mulch with cardboard, fill it in with the big logs, fill in the gaps with the sticks and shrubbery, and then start piling on manures and things like that, and old broken down leaves. They call it leaf mold compost, or just all these old broken down leaves I've got in the back here and that my neighbor has. And and then my homemade compost on top, and then you mulch it down with either some wood chips or some straw, or maybe a little bit of both. And so that's the plan. I'm not going to get it all done today, obviously. It's a lot of work and it's hot out. But I've got a good start here. I think I can get it filled in with a lot of logs and debris still today, and I still don't have a source for all that manure, or I haven't gone and got it yet. That's sort of a when I can do it type of thing, or when it's convenient for them as well. So it won't get done today, but the plan is that it'll be kind of mounded up out of this box. Even though this box is pretty high, it's higher than my normal raised beds, but it's going to be mounted up pretty high because over time those sticks and stuff, the smaller sticks first are going to start to break down and settle, and eventually the larger logs will start to break down more and settle, and it all just settles over time. And you can amend it every year if you want, with a little more compost or whatever else you want to add to it, organic matter on top, different mulches and stuff that will just keep breaking down and contributing. And sort of the whole point of this is that I'm trying to prove that you can build a very productive garden that will produce a lot of food. This is going to be pretty big for free. This wood is pallets that I found behind some places, and then scrap wood from other projects and stuff that I had lying around. So that was all free. I've got this huge box of deck screws back here that I got at the Habitat for Humanity restore a long time ago. It was like $50, but there's like over 1,000 really good, strong, long decking screws in there. So every project I do, I have plenty of screws for. So I'm not counting much cost into that. So we'll say free for now. All the wood, the logs, the debris, the leaves, all that's free. The compost I made is from my, yard waste and kitchen scraps and such. That kind of stuff. I've got some hay left over from a hay bale for the chicken coop back there. So I've got various organic matter in piles breaking down in different stages around my yard, and I'm going to pile all that in there. So basically just all your waste matter, all your organic waste matter. They call this a carbon, you can sequester carbon or whatever. It's a carbon sink or something. I don't know the terminology exactly, but great way to use up a bunch of waste product and make a very productive garden, and it's going to be entirely free, or made from things I already had lying around. I didn't have to go buy anything. So that's the plan. This will be the first video. I'll take you along as it gets filled up with different things, and eventually, hopefully, I'll be planting in it. I might like to plant before the summer ends for sure, some beans, or maybe if we get into the end of summer before it's all said and done, I'll plant some peas, a bunch of peas in it, because peas and beans are both legumes, both nitrogen fixtures. It'll grow a bunch of peas for us, snap peas and things like that, and it'll add nitrogen to it, and then over the winter it'll just settle and decompose more and more, and in the spring it'll be banging. So that's the suburban homestead update for June 13th, 2016. Ooh, bird just buzzed me, and the chickens didn't like it. Alright, thanks for watching.